Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We're also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we are breaking down a little bit of league news. We have some major news that just dropped as we were recording, and we are also going to do just a quick little primer for you guys for the combine that is going on as we're filming. We'll talk about things to look for and what may move the needle for some of these prospects trying to rise up teams' draft boards. Jeff, what news just dropped this week?
So, the first bit of league news that just dropped is the Rams and their star quarterback, Matthew Stafford, have agreed to a new deal to keep the quarterback in Los Angeles. We do not even have the terms of the deal yet, so I'm waiting for that to come down, and it may come down during recording here. But Alex, there was real interest from other teams here, and even to the point where it had you believing that he was going to one very specific team. Alex, what teams were involved here, and what team came in second place?
So Jeff and I have been talking about this a lot offline, and it was reported that Stafford was looking for market value with the Rams. The Rams gave him permission to talk to other teams. The two teams that were reported that he talked to were the Giants, who are very desperate, and the Raiders, who are very desperate. And both teams, he was given permission to speak with them on possible terms, and they gave him the guaranteed figures of maybe a 3-year deal with $90 million or a 3-year deal with $100 million guaranteed. There was a big hubbub about Stafford meeting with Tom Brady in Montana, whether it was a coincidence, whether it was orchestrated. One reporter, Schultz, reported that it wasn't a coincidence, and then Ian Rappaport came back and said it was. They both have a place in Montana, and they both met each other, just briefly talked. It doesn't really matter either way because the Rams gave him permission to talk to teams, so it doesn't matter for that regard. But it was funny that this led to a Starbucks verbal fight between the two reporters in Indianapolis that got reported around the scene. Jeff was always on the hedge that it was going back, that he was going back to the Rams. I thought, well, if they're really talking about this seriously, it seems like it's 50-50, might even lean towards the Raiders. This is another Raiders trap. Last one was Ben Johnson was going to be their head coach, and now this time Matt Stafford's going to be their quarterback. Both of them didn't work out. Stafford is returning back to the Rams, barring some crazy freak incident with the contract. We're looking for the details soon, but the Rams get to keep their quarterback for another couple years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think last week on the podcast, to recap, I think I gave it a 5% chance that Matthew Stafford was going to leave, and I will now drop that down to 0% here in case anyone is wondering. But that does leave the Raiders still without their quarterback, so their attention seemingly will turn to Sam Darnold and the draft. And we still don't even know if the Vikings will tag Sam Darnold. The non-exclusive tag number did come down at $40.2 million today as well. So we'll see if they give him that, if they give him a transition tag. But the non-exclusive tag does seem to be the most likely scenario here because they could at least end up with some draft pick compensation for their star quarterback as they turn the reins over to J.J. McCarthy. Also, if that does happen, it leaves Aaron Rodgers available for the Vikings, which is what Alex's dream scenario is. And speaking of Aaron Rodgers, there is reports out now, and I don't even think the Giants were really a realistic landing spot for Matthew Stafford because I think they would have had to overpay significantly for him. And it would have just been a money grab for a guy that does appear like he wants to compete. And I don't think the Giants would have been that spot, but it does appear that the Giants are turning their attention to Aaron Rodgers. If they do land Aaron Rodgers, you could presume that Devontae Adams would be part of that conversation at some point. Not saying he will for sure land there. But if you paired up Rodgers, Neighbors, Adams, and have Tyrone Tracy as the running back, and maybe even draft another running back to go along with Tyrone Tracy, and then you have Theo Johnson returning from injury, and then Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot, like that's a really good offensive team. Like that's a team that could actually put up numbers better than what Stafford could be just going there by himself. So this might be a blessing in disguise. Plus, I don't have to give up draft pick compensation for Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have to move cities. I still, with Aaron Rodgers, I lean towards Tennessee being the best spot for him. It's warmer. He could bring Devontae Adams there with him as well. It's a more winnable division, in my opinion. So therefore, Aaron Rodgers going to Tennessee with Devontae Adams and having Calvin Ridley as the number 2 receiver there, that's pretty attractive as well. So hopefully we have some resolution on Aaron Rodgers before free agency starts, because they did announce that he was going to be released. He is allowed to negotiate with teams now. And that would be really, really cool domino to fall before we get to the legal tampering period on March 10th, which is roughly 10 days away. So we're very close to free agency here. We are 12 days away from officially being able to sign between the legal tampering period and then the actual signing on the 12th. But Alex, anything else to add on Matthew Stafford and the Rams, or any of the other quarterback news that I just dropped around the league?
I think that the Giants probably have to go through the draft, and they may have to trade up at this point if all their quarterback options dry up. I know we'll be watching the musical chairs as they play out, but this is the first domino, so we will see what happens with all the other quarterbacks this offseason.
So if Rodgers goes to Tennessee, that leaves presumably the Browns, the Raiders, and the Giants all still looking for their starting quarterback. If you're the Vikings, do you franchise tag Sam Darnold so you can kind of control the negotiations of those three teams and see if you can't get some decent draft pick compensation for Sam Darnold? Or do you just let him go and hope that other free agents see that if they have a big year that they are in control of their destiny after that year?
If I'm the Vikings, and based off of the franchise tag figures that you forwarded me, I'm willing to pay $40 million for 1 year for Sam Darnold to ensure that we're going to be competitive if McCarthy isn't quite figured out or quite there yet. And I would use that leverage like, hey, we want to keep him because we want insurance and we know he can perform at X level. However, if a team comes and offers you more than a compensation 3rd round pick next year, then I would consider, depending on the deal, I would consider moving off Sam Darnold and clearing him off your books and gaining, more assets. So I think that's the smart play if I was the Vikings, especially considering that they have a 1st round pick and then they have like 2 fifths. So they don't have much to work with in this draft. They need more capital.
For sure. And the way that you pitched it, like, I think the Vikings need to be comfortable keeping Sam Darnold if they're going to put the tag on him. And at $40 million, I think I would be comfortable slapping the non-exclusive tag on him and let him get offer sheet. Because with the offer sheet method, then it's 2 first-round picks that Minnesota would get back, but also it gives them the ability to negotiate with that team. So like if they decide on a 1st and a 3rd instead of 2 first-round picks, they could do that. So this gives them some flexibility, and I think Darnold, I think he's going to have a hot market here. I think Rodgers is going to have a hot market based on the information that we know. It sounds like Cousins is staying in Atlanta, at least for right now. I just think that these teams are going to run out of options at quarterback really quickly, and the musical chairs are going to end up with a few seats that are empty and not enough people to fill them.
Yeah. And it sounds like the quarterback market's already drying up before we even hit free agency. So that only drives up the market for Sam Darnold.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it sounds like this draft has a pretty poor group of guys that aren't going to be expected to do as well as last year. So
All right. Did we talk about Travis Kelce yet?
We didn't. We jumped into the breaking news first, but since you mentioned him and last year, Travis Kelce, we were wondering if he would return in the 2025 season, and we now have our answer. He absolutely will return this year in quote unquote the best shape of his life, which Alex can attest to that I am sick of that over the summer because so and so is in the best shape of their life, and you hear that all the time. You never hear someone is not in the best shape of their life. So are we expected to assume that when Josh Allen returns to the Bills camp that he is not in the best shape of his life if there isn't a blast out there that says he's in the best shape of his life? But I do expect Travis Kelce to play with a vengeance this year. I do expect this to be his last year as well. Once you start contemplating retirement, you're really close to it, and I wonder if they would have won the Super Bowl if he would have just walked away. But bad taste in his mouth. He's coming back for another year, and the Chiefs expect to be contenders with Travis Kelce and probably out of the tight end market as far as draft goes now. So with Gray and Kelce going into this year.
Yeah. He's not gonna be a tight end I target at all in leagues this year. But should he and Taylor Swift break up, then maybe I would draft him as a high upside guy because then he really will be playing very hard and probably in the best shape of his life then on a revenge tour. So that's
Maybe
the
he'll be
Travis Kelce I'd
sad.
want.
Maybe he'll be sad, like
I don't know
Eeyore.
about that. But yeah, at this point, he's a veteran presence that can get some crucial first downs, but his athleticism has been sapped at this point in his career.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that I would take him at some point in the draft. I currently have him as my fifth tight end, but we'll see if he lasts that long. And Alex is over there shaking his head for people that can't hear it rattling on the microphone. So he did finish tight end 6 last year on a down year. So tight end 5 is not crazy, but he's also probably not going to be until an 8th round pick for me because tight end is going to be something that maybe I'll take Brock Bauer early, but that's about it. Because I don't trust Sam Laporta. I don't trust George Kittle to stay healthy the whole year. Like, some of it boils down to trust at that position. But Kelce also was notated to have a illness going into the Super Bowl. So that was interesting that he'll come into the year fully healthy. But I do want to go into a few people that were not healthy to end the season and still were performing, and we didn't know about it until after because they did get off-season surgery, and that's quarterback Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos. So he got surgery, and it sounds like he's already fully healthy, ready to go. And same thing with Xavier Legette, the wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. He also underwent off-season surgery. So hopefully these cleanup surgeries were pretty minor, and they're back to 100% relatively quickly, and it does not impact their 2025. Any thoughts on the off-season injuries or any that I missed for cleanups so far?
No, I think that pretty much covers that. Do we want to talk about your favorite play that's been brought up in discussion? A unnamed source originally filed a petition to have the tush push reviewed and removed, the brotherly shove of Philadelphia. And everyone's been calling them cowards for being unnamed, and now we know it's the Green Bay Packers are the ones that filed that. And then out of nowhere, all the other teams weighed in on it and want it removed. So, Jeff, what do you? I know you have some thoughts about the tush push. What are your thoughts on
So
this?
so I've read a lot on this. I've also got into it with a few people on X, which I am very active at N2E Jeff, in case anyone is looking for me to come at me with a hot take and we can debate about it. But I found that Philly is very passionate about their tush push. And maybe it's because Philly has trademarked the brotherly shove, and it's something that gains revenue for their team. I don't know. I don't know what the attraction is of this play. It's not aesthetically pleasing to watch. It takes out the skill of just a regular quarterback sneak, which you hardly ever see from the Eagles. And I know in my Madden days, I used to use the quarterback sneak quite often. What am I kidding? I still play Madden today, so back in my Madden days. And basically, the Eagles here are contesting that they're the only ones that are good at this play, because they get roughly between 80 and 90% conversion rate over the last 3 years. Although teams other than the Eagles running this play are at a 72 to 75% clip over the same time period. This play is very automatic. It's kind of the play that the NFL looks to remove. If you remember, the extra point used to be at the 2-yard line. They moved it back to the 25, I believe. And that's just to kind of take away the automaticness of the extra point. And basically, they did that same thing with the dynamic kickoff because they were sick of touchbacks. Like, they don't like the plays that are automatic. They also don't like the plays that aren't aesthetically pleasing. The point of this play is to have large masses of humanity be piled on top of each other for a first down purpose. And because there hasn't been a major injury that has come out of it so far, there's a famous expression that past performance doesn't equate to future outcomes, and that's something that they would have to look at seriously here. Will it take a major injury to ban it? Maybe. But there's hosts and even ex people out there that question how one would write the rule. And if it were me taking a quick stab at it, because I this rule used to be illegal, or this play used to be illegal as far as the NFL rulebook went. I'm not sure how it became legal, but basically I would write it with the person taking the snap, so the quarterback for the play. The people lining up behind him cannot push him like upon the snap. So that would be the cut and dry of the rule that I would have here. This looks like a rugby play. We are not playing rugby right now. So, Alex, I will let you speak for, but I am definitely against this play, even if it hurts one team more than the other. Not to mention that team does have Jalen Hurts, which is one of the best running quarterbacks, one of the best deadlift quarterbacks in the league. So he would likely get these on quarterback sneaks anyways. And Saquon Barkley, one of the best running backs in the league. So I don't think it would hurt them that badly.
So I don't think it's that boring of a play with the automatic success because it's only one team that's perfected it. The other teams cannot replicate it. It's not consistent. You just see one team execute it well. You've seen other teams like the Bills try to recreate it, fail multiple times trying to get first downs using a poor version of it. I don't think very many teams have been able to repeat it on a regular basis. Some try and some get it once or twice, but it's not a guarantee. And I don't see it becoming an issue because, as you pointed out, the NFL wants more excitement. Well, getting first downs means the offense stays on the field, which means it continues on. Nobody wants to see punting. Nobody wants to watch NFL for its punting, unless that's your thing for whatever reason. So it's always going to be there unless someone finds a way to actually stop it and shut it down, or major injuries start occurring. Those are the only two scenarios I can see where it ends.
So Chris Jones getting hurt in the Super Bowl is not a major injury on that play?
I mean, you said that there was no major injuries. You said he got injured, but it wasn't.
He did.
As far as I can tell, it wasn't anything significant or structural.
He came back, but that doesn't mean he would have played the next week. The Super Bowl is kind of it. So
to be fair, like the way he tried to stop it might have been one of the dumbest ways to utilize his weight and physics. He wasn't positioned, he was about sideways, not positioned himself to actually resist any kind of push or push back. So it didn't make any sense. So I would put that on him, not the actual tush push, which I hate that I call it tush push because it's the brotherly shove. which
You
sounds
can,
way
you
better.
can, you can say this, Alex, but you also said, so you're kind of saying two different, very opposite things, that it's on other teams to figure out a way to stop it. So there's going to be stupid attempts to try to stop this, like Chris Jones.
Yep,
So if you're leaving it on defensive teams to experiment with this, then you're going to get stupid ways to stop it.
that's true. But what he did had no chance of working before the ball was even snapped. So
Right. But you don't know unless you try it. And plus, if there's a 80% conversion rate, 90% conversion rate, then what's the point of even, like, if you think something might work, just give it a shot. But the Buffalo Bills were more successful at this play in the regular season, and they're one of the teams that actually want it banned for the potential injury concern. And Sean McDermott says that they run it slightly different, and that's why it looks like the bootleg version to try to prevent the injuries. So,
well, how they ran it from what the moments that I saw of their games, I think they did it once in the Texans game. It was too vertical, which had no chance of getting pushed. The reason why Phillies is so successful is they're straight out horizontal as they can be to get the full leverage. And the Bills, like Josh Allen was above the line, which made no sense. And that's why he couldn't get any push because he was upright, whereas the defense was more level with more leverage. And
so
I
let
think
me
that's
ask you
riskier.
this, and we can move on after I ask you this. But do you believe that there's a higher or lower percentage chance that someone lands on Jalen Hurts' leg and knocks him out for the season on that play or any other play? And then
What
you're
a
looking
great
at Kenny Pickett
question.
as the quarterback,
What a great question.
which is
Because,
what we do not want.
yeah, because they've done it so many times and he hasn't really hurt himself on that play.
There's laws of averages for a reason.
I know, but
How can he
it's tough.
control where a defender falls on him? There's
I
no.
mean, how can he
Once he
control
starts getting
being
pushed,
blindsided by a defender holding the ball? Like, if he's
yeah.
holding the ball looking for a pass downfield and he gets blindsided, he could have all kinds of injuries there. Honestly, until I see otherwise, I don't think it's any more risky than just playing football as a quarterback.
Okay. Because he has no control over his body in that play because he's getting pushed. So, snap, crackle, and pop. Like,
It's gonna have to take injuries for them to stop.
yeah. But if he gets injured, you can admit that their season's over
Yeah.
because Kenny Pickett's not bringing them anywhere.
Well, it depends on how serious the injury, but yeah, if he gets a serious injury from it, then the whole move is over.
Yeah. And also, the fact, like, watching Kenny Pickett this year, the games that he did play when Hurts was out was miserable to watch.
I
It's a
never liked
wonder they
Kenny
won the
Pickett as a
Super Bowl.
prospect. Yeah, I never liked Kenny Pickett as a prospect, so it doesn't surprise me. But
Yep.
let's move on to your local team, Buffalo Bills have extended wide receiver Khalil Shakir on a 4-year extension worth up to 60.2 million, which sounds to me, based on the wide receiver marketplace, is actually a steal of a contract.
Mm-hmm.
About akin to what Gabe Davis got from the Jaguars. I think we both agree Khalil Shakir's a much better wide receiver than that. Jeff, being a local up there, what do you think of this extension?
So I kind of question why this came in so low because, I mean, his max value of this deal is $60.2 million. So that puts him roughly at $15 million a year, which is like a number two, but B level number two wide receiver in the NFL. And even if Shakir is a number two in this league, he's definitely more on the A side, like your Ridley area, stuff like that. Right, at least at this point in time, I think he's better than Kevin Ridley at this exact moment. So I don't know what convinced him to give this sort of deal, and the fact that they got this deal done so early and quick and neatly too makes me think that the Bills have something on Shakir. But I joke about that. But basically, for 4 years, $60.2 million with $32 million of it only guaranteed. So basically, only the first 2 years are guaranteed, and then it's like a we'll see contract too. This is very low risk, very life-changing money for Shakir too. So don't get me wrong, because Shakir was making $3 million this year. Now he's making 15. So, I mean, that's a huge bump up. So we'll see what happens with it, but this looks like a great deal overall for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, it looks like a steal, especially considering that the NFL has officially released its cap figures for the year, and their salary cap is now risen up to $279.2 million. The highest it's ever been, didn't go down, jumped up nearly $20 million over last year. So now these teams that were in cap purgatory have a little bit of flexibility, and a lot of guys are going to have money now going into the free agency market. So, what do you make of the salary cap? What do you think this means, or what impact will it have?
So, well, quarterback contracts are still going to be out of control, which means if Brock Purdy gets the $50 million per year, which is what we all expect from the 49ers, I wouldn't pay him that. But that's less than 20% of your cap. So that's different than, say, Dak last year getting 25% of his cap. So there's pieces to that show that this isn't all bad. Obviously, revenue's going up for the league. They're sharing it with the players. This league is just a huge moneymaker for as a business. Like, huge. And I think that the players have to be really happy with the deal that they got with the 50-50 revenue split with owners. Owners have to be really happy with that too, because they're just making they're making money hand over fist for fielding a team. So I think the health of this league has never been better, first of all. Second of all, I think the money in the contracts will go up, which is totally fine, because if they're making that revenue, then obviously the players should be the ones collecting that revenue. And I know that there's the other side of the conversation that Alex would like to have at some point, like, well, they don't need to be charging this much, they're making too much and they're charging us too much as well, but they can and we pay it. So what's to stop them in a free market from charging it? And I don't expect ticket prices to drop. I don't expect Sunday ticket prices to drop. I don't expect any sort of charity from the league. So
It's funny because I can't remember the last time I went to a football game on the pro level anymore, because the value that they provide going there does not meet the price. Like the parking, the concessions, the quality of seats. I mean, maybe Jerry World in Dallas might, because that's a little bit newer of a stadium and it is designed to be a better atmosphere for fans, but some of these older stadiums, no. So at some point, that's going to hit them. But I know the Texans, at least, have been talking about getting a new stadium. I agree with you that quarterback salaries are going to get inflated. All these free agents now, who most of whom aren't the number one at their position, but they're the best available, are now going to get paid more than the best in their positions, and it's just going to keep getting inflated. Other than running back, I don't think these running backs are going to get more than Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry or anything like that. But other positions will get overpaid, and we just saw Trey Smith, the Kansas City guard that everybody wanted in free agency, got tagged, and now he's getting paid $3 million more than the next highest paid guard, and Kansas City's intent on extending him, so it might be even more than that. So everything's going to go up accordingly.
Also, it shows how much of a steal Patrick Mahomes' 10-year deal was, because he can't renegotiate year after year, and $50 million per year for him. Quite the steal overall for Patrick Mahomes, even though he's going to probably end up one of the top career earners in the NFL history. But what you were saying gave me a thought, like, if a player could be guaranteed health, or even at like a 90% clip health, Would you do 1 year-to-year deals because you know you could max out and get the most amount of money in year-to-year deals versus signing that 4-year fully guaranteed that Shakir just signed right now? Because if Shakir signed a 1-year deal, say for $15 million this year, and he had another baller year, he could get $20 million next year instead of $15 million again next year. Like, I think
or
that's the
more,
way that you
depending on if you.
maximize.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just saying, or more if he maximized his play this year. If he came out as a true number one instead of a nominal number one, then he could have gotten more. But they might have gone to him and said, hey, this will catch you up. You should, like, based on your play, you should have been making more than your rookie deal. This will catch you up. We'll give you a nice bonus at the beginning. That'll lower the rest of the cap value. If you outperform this, we will reward you and tear this up at some point and give you a better deal. Maybe they did that kind of offer.
Yeah, and they
I
might
don't
have
know.
tore up his last year of his deal too, but I think this is actually a true extension. I think he signed for 5 more years, 1 more on his rookie deal, and then 4 more with this. Which, I mean, good for him for getting it, first of all, but also it's funny to watch him get undervalued over time, basically. All right. Anything else on the league news there, sir?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right.
All right, so we can move on to the NFL draft season approaching us. We have the combine going on right now as we are recording. The kickers, defensive linemen, and linebackers have already completed most of their on the field work. This is their last day for Friday. And the defensive backs and tight ends are going to do on field work today, Friday, and tomorrow, Saturday. The running backs, quarterbacks, and wideouts are all doing their on the field work. We'll get to see drills there, including my new favorite, the gauntlet drill for wide receivers. And O linemen are on Sunday. All of this is probably going to be recorded and repeated on the regular on the NFL network. So if you miss it, you can watch it there. I'm a little disappointed, but it's understandable that the top prospects are all sitting out because they know they're most likely to hit in the top half of the draft, and they're all deciding this isn't going to move the needle whether I perform well or not, so might as well stay healthy. So we have Travis Hunter sitting out of the combine, Abdul Carter, the edge rusher. It doesn't apply to most of you in fantasy, but he has a foot stress something. He has a foot stress sitting out, not getting surgery though. He doesn't need it. Alshon Genty is sitting out. Both the consensus top 2 quarterbacks, Shador Sanders and Cam Ward, are not throwing. Tyler Warren not doing drills. All Colston Loveland not doing drills. Elijah Rojo is a little banged up with a knee injury. The tight end out of Miami is not going to do drills either. There's more, but it's a shame to not see them. Most of them, if not all of them, will in fact do the drills at the pro day in a more familiar setting. So this doesn't really mean much. I personally, I don't know how many of you watch the combine, but there are certain drills that do potentially lead to or indicate success in the NFL when it comes to the vertical jump and broad jump. Those show a player's potential explosiveness, so those are interesting to see. That's important for any kind of skill position player, as well as sometimes alignment. A 40-yard dash is more pageantry. It matters more if your 40-yard dash time is bad than it does if it's really good. Ultimately, it'll come down to game film speed now that everyone has a chip in their college pads to see how fast you run on the field with pads on. But it is interesting to see how players move if they have a really fast time. And some guys get overdrafted just because they're athletic or fast. 3-cone drill is very good, trying to test out agility, lateral ability, and it's more important for like wide receivers, defensive backs, and running backs. It's something Cooper Kupp and Christian McCaffrey did well on 3 cones. And interestingly enough, it is scaled towards your size. So you can be slower as long as you're taller and it match up together. If you're slow and you're smaller, it's not good for you. Outside of that, We have the short shuttle that's important for linebackers and safeties and slot receivers. And then we have shuttle that's important for offensive linemen as well. When it comes to throwing, I am interested to see which quarterbacks opt to throw. There are a number of quarterbacks that are going to go in the middle to upper middle round, so maybe 2, 3, 4 range that might be able to get themselves moved up the draft and therefore moved up on your dynasty rankings should they go to an ideal spot. Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, I believe, and Kyle McCord are all throwing. I believe that Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Riley Leonard, Seth Hennigan are also. And perhaps Curtis Rourke too. I haven't got confirmation on that. Jalen Milrow is, like I said at the beginning, Shador Sanders and Cam Ward are not, but it won't affect their draft impact that much. Ultimately, I'm very curious which running backs end up doing drills and how they look, how teams react to them, as well as all the coaching and staff meetings with individual players that might indicate where they're going in the draft. I really want to see Isaiah Bond, Jack Beck. I want to see Jaden Higgins, and I want to see Matthew Golden, a couple of these other wide receivers, Trey Harris. I want to see all of these wide receivers do drills. Eric Minor. Those are some of my favorites in this draft. Not too big on Luther Burden the third. Not too big on some of the other guys at the top. But we'll see who stands out, and then we'll see if it matches up to their game film and where they could go. That's essentially it. I know that was a lot of talking from me, but
No, that's okay.
This is, as Jeff puts in the past, this is the pageantry of the NFL draft season. It's not as much substance, it's more flash and it's more talked up, but there is some nuggets to glean from this experience.
The underwear Olympics, as I call them, and
that too.
So we'll see what happens here because they're not in pads, obviously. So anything that you see, it'd be fun, much more fun to watch people run 40s in full pads and full uniforms to get an actual gauge of how they could run in a game. But Alex, offline, you shared with me that you might have a new number 2 quarterback prospect. You want to share who that is?
I'm really liking tape from Kyle McCord. It's made me move him. I have him at number 2 behind Cam Ward right now. I'm still jockeying a few guys around. Like I also like Tyler Shock out of Louisville. I also like Jackson Dart out of Mississippi. I think at this point, I am lower on Shador Sanders than almost everyone out there, seemingly. I think based on who I just named, I think I have Shador Sanders currently at 5, barely above Quinn Ewers at 6. So I'm continuing on the film and continuing to readjust as I watch these guys. And we'll see if Kyle McCord stays there when I release my official rankings.
Absolutely. He could be the steal of the draft just based on the position that he's going to go in and the expectations of the position that he's going to go in. So
I really like Tyler Shock too. I don't know if you've checked him out at all. First year he remained healthy, but when he played previous years in crucial situations, he played very well. It's almost like a much more fragile version of Pat Mahomes. I know everyone wants to claim guys are Patrick Mahomes. Cam Ward is not Patrick Mahomes. That's not what he is. Anyone has a chance to be him, but be a late pick. It could be Tyler Shock. He's still athletic, but just has to stay healthy. So these are 2 guys that are likely to go in the middle rounds I like more than most.
Yeah, so it sounds like there could be some sleeper quarterbacks in the league, which is good for teams like the Browns looking for Deshaun Watson relief of some sort, whether it's injury relief or other. Yeah. I mean, the Titans aren't bought in on Will Levis. It's very evident as well. So I think there's a lot more. And then even like the Saints with like Derek Carr, they're going to keep him for this year, it sounds like. But they may not be fully bought in on Spencer Rattler behind him. So like they might be looking in a different direction as well. So I like when there's possibilities out there because the more good quarterback play that we get in the NFL, the better the product that they put out on Sundays. I root for good quarterback play.
Yeah, my read on the Saints situation is they're hoping one of those quarterbacks on their team pans out. If not, they're going to do what it takes to get Arch Manning on their team next year. That's my thought.
Yeah, it'll be hard though with the Derek Carr, Chris Olave, and Elvin Kamara situation on offense, because that's enough to be able to win a couple of games that'll get them out of the number one pick.
Potentially,
They're
that's why
middling,
they
which is
that's
not
why
good.
they better fill out their roster this year so they can give up their picks next year.
Yeah. But you can kind of see that being middling is not a way to be either. And giving up that much, you saw what Carolina went through when they gave up all that for Bryce Young. Like, was it really worth it?
Yeah.
He's good now,
Answer
too.
it,
So that's even to say that he's
answer
good
so
now.
far. Oh,
I still don't think it's worth it.
Burns hasn't really done much with the Giants. So I mean,
Well,
if they use
we didn't
him,
give him up in
if they
that trade.
use
We gave
him,
up DJ Moore.
I know if they had switched and used him, it might have looked better if they kept DJ Moore. But I don't
You're
know.
not wrong. And then the latest report with the Raiders, they're looking at Russell Wilson now too. So there you go. There's your Pete Carroll Russell Wilson reunion.
Is that where I predicted Russ would go? Was the Raiders? Is that what I decided on?
Alex,
I think so, right?
You clearly have no convictions in your predictions. Is that where I put him?
No, I just predict everything, so I'm right.
I'm sure there's clips of you saying that Russell Wilson is going to all 32 teams. So when he does go to that team, you could just play it. Like, see, I was right.
There's only 3 teams that I think he's in consideration for, and it's reuniting with Pittsburgh, which it sounds like Pittsburgh's not in on it. I think he could be a good mentor in Indianapolis, but there's been no connection there. So it's only the Raiders, and I think that's where I predicted he would go. After I said all that is when all the Stafford stuff came out. So I mean, I can't be faulted if something comes out of the blue and then has a lot of people talking about it to consider that being a possible thing.
Yeah, and you could kind of see with the Stafford thing, people are hush, hush, quiet, quiet until there's a deal that comes through, like with the Rams. So don't be shocked if the Steelers come through at the last minute.
It seems to me they're leaning Justin Fields. I don't think they'll stick with only Justin Fields, but I think they're going Justin Fields over Russ. Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that does it for this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading and listening to this episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2 Fantasy and with our handle N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.